All right, let's talk about Ty France a little bit. The man is on fire. We're watching this every day. We've seen that average, that OBP, that slugging climb for several weeks. And as expected, the power is coming. I think I've been talking about that since before the season started. I expected him to come in the season at 25 to 30 homers. That's probably not going to happen, but he is up to, 14 now? 15? I think maybe he hit his 15th on Sunday. Matt asks, hey, so far, France seems to be a savvy pickup from the trade deadline last year. I'm wondering what his offensive profile may look like next year. My thinking is that this is his first full season in the majors, so he's learning his way playing a 162-game schedule, and next year he'll be even more prepared because he knows what to expect. Also, him getting hit on the wrist a few times can have helped, but despite all of that, he seems to be hitting pretty well. But do you see him having similar production profile to, say, Kyle Seager over the long run? Kyle's hit at least 20 home runs and averaged 80 RBI per season for all but his first year in the league, and last year, which was only 60 games. Does France have more untapped power or average there? First of all, I don't put tons of stock in the whole learning to handle 162-game schedule since it's not that different than a full minor league schedule. Minor league schedules are 130, 140 games. France played 137 games between AA and AAA in 2018 and 145 games between AAA and the big leagues in 2019. He's played 115 games through Sunday, and the team has 37 games left. So the most he can play is 152. That's only 7 more than he's played in previous seasons. I mean, that's not really a thing. Sometimes it can be because players are coming from maybe the lower minors, and they're college players who played 60 to 70 games, and then they played, maybe 90 their first year because it was mostly a half season, or maybe they're a catcher or whatever. There are instances where that is a thing. That is not a thing with 27-year-old Ty France right now. But if you go back and you look at Ty France in April, you look at that swing in April and his swing today, there is a noticeable difference. There's more aggression to his pull side on balls middle in. He's turning on those pitches more often and hitting them 400 plus feet instead of hitting them to center or to right center field for a single. I think since June 1, he's hitting 317, 374, 513 with 12 homers. Since June 1, that means he had, 3 homers the first 2 months of the season? And since July 1, he's batting 341, 384, 514 with 7 homers and 7 doubles. That's a 44-game span. France is different than Seager. He hits for higher average, and it's because his swing is more conducive to hitting line drives, and he picks his spots with power. France hit, 302 in limited time last year, and he's at 292 this year, despite the league hitting 241, the lowest mark in decades. Seager's best was 278 in 2016, a year the league batted 255. So you can see the clear difference in ability to hit for average between France and Kyle Seager. France might be Paul Goldschmidt, maybe Paul Goldschmidt light, but still Paul Goldschmidt in a way, without the foot speed. Goldschmidt's first 7 years, all in Arizona, he batted 299, 399, 532, averaging 28 home runs a year with a 144 WRC plus. France right now this year, his first full season, is at 292, 362, 462, and a 130 WRC plus, and clearly trending up. So I think he has a chance to live in the 500 slugging range with a 360, 370 OBP. And 280 plus, and to hit 280 plus. And on the high side, might have a season or two where he actually hits 300, which is remarkable considering, again, how difficult it is to hit for average these days. Hitting 292 right now is like hitting 320, 15, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when the league was hitting 265 or 270. And, maybe in France's prime, he's 300, 400, 550. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. More on France. Cam in Vancouver asks, hey, could you give a quick update on where Ty France's glove is at right now? Does his improvement keep him only at first base, Or do you think they will keep giving him reps at second base and or third base? Lastly, if Evan White comes back healthy and starts to show even just his median projection, how would you balance those two at first base? Do you trade one? When do you look to trade one? Ben, along the same lines, asks, has Ty France replaced Evan White? He seems to have grown into a very heads-up and trustworthy first baseman. I suppose they could switch off DH first base, but that DH spot is going to be key developing the outfield prospects. I fear Evan has fallen down the priority list and won't get the reps he needs to develop, but also doesn't have much trade value given his contract extension. Do you agree, disagree? What should or can they do about this? And Andrew asks simply, what does the future hold for Evan White? All right. Lots to unpack there. First, France has some infield chops, and Seattle knew that when they got him. They thought maybe he'd be able to handle third base. So the fact that he's playing so well at first base was probably just a matter of time and him buying into it and working with Perry Hill. I mean, he had plenty of ability to play there. And while he probably could play a little bit of third base, he's really taken to first, and I think he's solid average at first base, maybe a little above average, and he's only going to get better the more he plays there. As for other spots, I think the only way France plays elsewhere is if the Mariners either acquire another first baseman or Evan White earns his way back. We are a ways away from that at this point. France is your first baseman. Ty France is the first baseman for the Seattle Mariners for the foreseeable future. I do not think, by the way, that DH is going to be utilized heavily on outfield prospects. I actually think the club should and probably will consider signing an outfielder that can man the designated hitter spot and offer more offense to start 2022, because without doing so, it's the same lineup they're tossing out there right now, plus a new second baseman or third baseman, whichever spot Abraham Toro doesn't end up at. That won't be enough. You want them to win next year, right? They need to score more runs and consistently. And you cannot go into 2022 thinking, well, Jared Kelenic should be better. Cal Raleigh should be better. Luis Torrens should be. You cannot have that. You cannot take that approach. That is hoping, not planning. If those things happen, then you have this extra veteran outfielder that you can go make a deal with. Or to serve as, you'll have tons of depth. Remember the word depth. Remember the way we talked about that over the offseason. Depth isn't just having a body. It's having a proven player. It's having a good player. The Mariners don't have depth. They have holes in their everyday lineup and holes on their bench. Most teams, most good teams, don't have significant holes in their lineup, and they have a couple of bench guys that can get it done offensively. Seattle doesn't really have that. But I don't think DH is going to be utilized heavily to help develop outfield prospects. Guys are going to earn their opportunities, and if they hit, they're going to stay. If they don't, they're going back to Tacoma, just like Taylor Trammell did, just like Jared Kelenic did. It's not a guarantee that Jared Kelenic is a starting outfielder next year to start the year. It's not a guarantee. What he does between now and the end of the season is going to matter there. What he does next spring is going to matter there. Same thing with Cal Raleigh behind the plate. We talked about last week. There's a better than decent chance that Cal Raleigh is not on the opening day roster next year. That they either keep Murphy and go with Murphy Torrens, or better yet, use either Torrens or Murphy with a veteran that they get, the Yan Gomes of the world, on a 1-year deal. You can't hope that Kelenic and Raleigh are going to provide the additional offense. I think it's plausible we hear the club saying all the right things about Evan White over the winter. Like he has a chance to win a job in spring training, which is true, technically, or they expect him to be on the major league roster, etc. But what else are they going to say? We don't want them bad-mouthing the player, and we don't want them ending hope that the player comes to spring training healthy and perform. You don't do that. But this isn't about White falling down a priority list. He just simply hasn't hit, and his injury doesn't buy him back his spot. And no, there's really no trade value there right now. The injury is too much. The only way to move him would be to trade him for another similar situation with a player in a contract. There's really no point in that right now. White needs to get healthy and spend at least half a season in AAA. At least. He's got work to do, which is what the club was going to do this year had he not gotten hurt. He was going to spend significant time in AAA Tacoma. We need to get to at least the middle of next season, and we'll have a much better idea where this is all going with Evan White. But France is the dude. It's the best hitter on the team right now. He is your first baseman. White has to win at bats by getting healthy, making some mechanical changes, and raking in AAA for an extended period of time. And those at-bats are not going to come at the expense of Ty France unless Ty France is like struggling for an extended period of time. Ty France is at least the Mariners' hope, and he's certainly showing that he's just going to be one of those guys they can rely on. Evan White's not taking time away from Ty France. Cam, Andrew, Ben, Matt, thank you. France has some folks intrigued. I like it. He's earned it. He is a grinder with power. Reminds me a little bit of Paul Konerko, except the swing. Paul Konerko always had a kind of a lift and leverage swing where he was going to hit the ball in the air. Ty France is still learning how to do that. And that's why I like the Paul Goldschmidt comp. I've seen some old school scouts say he's Bob Watson. So if you're old enough to remember Bob Watson, I've heard Bob Watson for Ty France, which is really interesting. Guy hit, 270, 280 in his best years, hit 300 and hit 25 plus homers. Nothing monstrous, nothing 40 homer, nothing MVP like, but just this is a good, solid, everyday bat that you want somewhere in your lineup. And right now he's the guy. I mean, we're at the point now where I would actually move some hitters around a little bit. I'd like to get Abraham Toro more opportunities. I'd like to get Ty France more opportunities than JP Crawford, for example. So I'd like to move Crawford down and Toro and France up. It's not really about who's batting first or who's batting second. It's just simply, even if I'm getting France one more at bat, one game every 2 weeks, then I want to do that. I absolutely want to do that because it could be in a key situation. The fact that he's batting fourth a lot, I don't really love it at this point. I think you have 5 weeks left. You're trying to hang around. I don't think you're disrupting this team by moving guys 1 or 2 spots. I mean, Crawford went from the 9 hole to lead off 3 months ago or whatever. That didn't seem to bother anybody else. And at the time, it seemed to help Crawford. And it's not really that Crawford's not hitting. It's just that other guys are hitting more. They're better. We're getting more out of Abraham Toro than we're seeing from JP Crawford right now. So France and Toro should be France, Toro, Haniger, and Seager should get the most at-bats. Nobody else should get more at-bats than those 4. And whatever order you want to put it in. You want Haniger to lead off. You want Toro at second and France at third and Seager at whatever. Fine. You want France to lead up. Fine. You want Seager to lead off. Fine. I don't care. As long as the player doesn't have some reason to hate it, do it. JP Crawford should not be getting more at bats than Ty France. He should not be getting more at bats than Toro. He should not be getting more at bats than Haniger or Seager. And really right now it's about damage. Crawford's just not doing damage. And while he's hitting 260, 270 with a 330 or 335 OBP, so what? So is Toro, and he'll give you a little bit of damage. He's going to hit that double. And he's every bit as capable of running the bases as JP Crawford, maybe more so. I'm at the point now where I'm willing to make that change. Maybe Scott Service is reading that clubhouse and thinks this is a good time to do it too. But I'd like to see something different with getting the best hitters at the top of the order. And I'm convinced right now that the Mariners have 4 better hitters than JP Crawford, and I'd like to make that change. Ty France makes that easy, by the way. He's the reason why I feel comfortable doing that. Because I'm confident that he's going to hit no matter where I put him. So let's get him more at bats. I'd move him up at least one spot. I'd move him to 3. I'd probably go Haniger, Toro 1, 2 in some order, and leave Seager at 4, and Crawford can go somewhere between 5 and 9. I don't even care where he goes.